Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brian Waddingham. I've been with the Coalition to Support Iowa's Farmers for almost 7 years. Prior to that, I spent some time with the Iowa Beef Industry Council in Ames, doing BQA compliance, producer communications, and prior to that was a high school ag instructor. So I've been very involved with agriculture all my life. And here at the Coalition, just going to kind of give you a snapshot of what we do, what we see today, and some opportunities that are out there for beginning livestock farmers. First, a little bit about the Coalition. We are funded by Iowa's major farm and commodity groups. So the Beef Council, cattlemen, corn, Farm Bureau, pork, poultry, soybean, turkey, and dairy all make it possible for us to go out to farmers, visit with them at no charge and completely confidential about making decisions on their farm, planning for future growth, and so on. Again, and what we don't do maybe is what defines us just as much as what we do. We do not enforce or fine. We're not a governmental agency. We don't lobby. We don't develop policy. We don't require membership or even charge for our services. So what we are here to do is help Iowa's livestock industry grow responsibly and successfully. And really the 4 key areas where we really focus our efforts are on siting of new barns and feedlots, interpreting how the rules and regulations today impact your farm specifically. Also develop a plan to communicate your farm, changes to your farm with your neighbors, and then finally implement best management practices on your farm, such as tree planting. So a lot of things that we do, we like to consider ourselves a one-stop shop for all things livestock agriculture here in the state of Iowa. As most of you know, if you have livestock, you know that it is a highly regulated industry. Today there are about 200 pages of rules and regulations that will apply to the average livestock farm today. That would include state and federal, which usually aren't the same. There's differences in each of them, so it's really important to have a thorough understanding of all the rules and regulations. And again, this was one of the primary reasons the Coalition was started back in 2004, was to help farmers navigate that maze of regulations that are out there. And you know, we do probably about 250 farm visits a year, and it's still surprising how many people don't know that there are rules that apply to any livestock farm that you put up today. Whether it's a confinement barn or an open lot, whether it's for 10 head or 10,000 head, there are rules and regulations that apply out there. And again, that's one of the main reasons we exist is we come out and make sure you understand what those rules are so you don't get in trouble down the road. So a little bit about what we're seeing today. We are seeing some optimism. Maybe it's a little more cautious than what it was back in 2013 and 14, but we are seeing some diversification. We're seeing cattle farmers at hog barns. We're seeing poultry farmers at hog barns. We're seeing open lots expand. We're seeing you know, Grandpa's farm that hadn't had any livestock for 2 to 3 generations. We're now putting livestock on that. So again, we're starting to see some real opportunities. I think some excitement. And again, a lot of it is around young people. You know, we take between 850 and 1,000 phone calls a year to our office, and last year, 55% of those were from people under 34 years of age. So to me, that really says there is a lot of optimism out there. Iowa is the place to continue to grow livestock. We're just going to have a little more finesse than what we have in the past. So what do we see trending today? Our number 1 call today is on cattle. Guys want to make sure their open feedlots in compliance. They want to put a barn up to finish cattle in, maybe close down an open lot. But our number 1 call today on cattle is putting cows in the rough. Guys want to put up a hoop to put cows in, really kind of remove that environmental component of that calving equation. And we've sited a lot of calving barns in the last 2 years. On the dairy side, obviously a lot of that is really dependent on milk price, but we have seen some growth. We've helped a few folks at robots. A lot of it on the dairy side today is environmental compliance, adding manure storage, maybe putting up a new freestall barn and seeing how that's going to impact your animal unit numbers, and so on. Our second most popular call today is on swine. Probably within the last 30 days, we've really seen an uptick in farmers calling us for assistance on siting new barns, maybe asking if they could add a new barn to their existing, what rules would then kick in. So again, we've really seen the swine industry take off, and we think that's going to probably hold throughout the rest of this fall. And then on the poultry and turkey side, we've seen that slow down a little bit, but we do hold out some hope that the broiler industry is going to make a resurgence here in November, especially in that northeast, north central Iowa area. But again, there are some opportunities out there, and again, that's another service that we can provide, is if you're interested in the livestock or poultry barn, we can kind of point you in the right direction of who may be looking in your county or your community to do some contract growing. And then I guess besides your traditional livestock and poultry, our third most requested call for assistance today is on aquaculture projects, specifically shrimp farming, but then also we're seeing a little bit of interest in fish farming too. But we've got a lot of different shrimp facilities that are going up around the state of Iowa, really in that northeast Iowa area, but I know as well as some not too far from here. North central Iowa has seen quite a bit of expansion, as has northwest Iowa. So again, another way to diversify that operation. You just really have to have your homework done before you dive into aquaculture from what we've seen and talk to some of the folks that have done it. Some folks have been very successful and some have exited out of the business in under 2 years. So again, but that is something we can help with, and same rules apply to a new fish farm as they do a 2,400 head hog finisher or a 500 head cattle barn. So there are rules and regs out there, and that's something that we can help walk folks through. So some challenges that we see today, I guess it was really glad to see Hills Bank call this meeting together and put the people on the agenda that were on there to talk about the financing part of things and how to go about getting or obtaining some financing, because that is probably the biggest complaint we hear from young people is, how do I get finance, where can I go, who can help? And again, we just kind of serve as that network to hook you up to the right folks. Some other things that we're seeing are the best sites out there for these new barns and feedlots are already taken. So now we're having to look at second and third tier sites, and that's really where communication comes in. And I know a previous speaker talked about communicating and the importance, and I would again say that communicating to your neighbors, to your community about what you're doing on the farm is going to be really what decides the future of your farm in the coming years. And I'll get into more of that here in a minute. We also see some EPA, DNR compliance issues on the farm, surprise inspections or even scheduled inspections are causing some issues. And again, we've got 200 pages of rules and regulations out there, so you really have to be on top of your game to pass an inspection today. But again, that's another service that we can provide, is come out before DNR, EPA, walk you through it, and make sure you can pass. And then neighbor relation issues. Like I mentioned, there's about 200 pages of rules and regs on the written side, but then we also have the unwritten rules. So just because it says that you can put this hog barn 1,250 feet from your neighbor, we may say that doesn't work in this particular situation. You need more separation based on topography, based on the community you live in, the county you live in, or who your neighbor is. So a lot of unwritten rules that we can go through as well. And the reason we do that is because of nuisance lawsuits. A year ago, we had a record number in the state of Iowa at 15, and that was against 13 hog producers and 2 cattlemen. Most of those have gone away, but there's still 6 on the books, and 3 of those are probably within 75 miles of where we're standing right now. So it is kind of over in this area where we're seeing a lot of those nuisance suits pop up. And again, ways to avoid those is communicating your plans and doing your homework in advance of turning dirt. And again, another way to help mitigate all this is having the coalition come out. And again, never too early to start planning. We've worked with some young people 12 months, 16, 18 months from the time we first met them until they put cattle or hogs or poultry in that barn. But they did it right, they took their time. And kind of what we do is we come right out to the farm, whether it's sitting down at the kitchen table, in the shop, in the feedlot. We do a lot in our pickups. But again, really see where you're at today, where you want to get to, what resources you have available, and then we help you develop a plan not only for today, but for tomorrow. So if you want to put up a 2,400 head hog barn today, well, let's say things go really well, and in 7 years you want to put up another one, let's make sure we site that barn today where you have that opportunity to put another barn there and expand in a few more years. But again, really comes down to them working with you to figure out the best story to tell your neighbors, the community, and anybody else that may need to hear your story of growth. But again, it's really imperative to make sure you've got your story down before the track hoe shows up and you start digging a hole in the field. And like I mentioned earlier, I really think neighbor relations is going to be the key to moving the livestock industry forward here in the state of Iowa. And it doesn't matter if you're a new and beginning farmer and it's your first livestock barn ever, you're an established farmer, you're looking to grow your livestock farm, or maybe you're even a livestock farmer that's just going to maintain the status quo and not grow. You need to get out, tell your story. We really encourage folks to talk to their neighbors at least annually. Make it part of the after harvest or after manure application to go visit with them, ask them what you did well, maybe what you need to work on, take them a ham, bag of pork chops, bag of T-bones, something to build that relationship up a little bit, and encourage them to stop down, take a tour of the place, and explain to them a little bit about what you do on your farm. The average consumer today is 3 generations removed from the family farm and have not probably set foot on a modern livestock farm ever, in their life. So you explaining to them what it is you're doing can go a long way in establishing that relationship with them. And again, when you go to visit with them, you're not asking for permission. You're just simply communicating your plans for growth. If you are bringing a son or daughter back, have them with you. Make sure they're doing most of the talking to those neighbors and really selling that story about why it's important for them to come back to the farm and return to their roots and take over for you or incorporate themselves into the family operation. And again, this really provides you with an opportunity to tell your story before the rumor mill starts out there. And we tell a lot of guys this, that if you're not willing to tell your story, there's a lot of other groups out there that are going to tell your story for you, and it's probably not the story you want told. And we are starting to see a lot of activism show up at the county level today. And again, best way to stay clear of that is to tell your story, have that community on your side, have the neighbors on your side, and this should not be an issue for you. And so at the end of the day, why does it really matter? And I think having that relationship with your neighbors and being active and involved in that community really means a difference between having an open house at your new hog barn or cattle barn or hosting a little activist rendezvous on your front yard at 7 in the morning. And that was just taken in Dallas County a year ago. But 80 activists bust in and protested on his front lawn about a hog barn that he was proposing. So again, enhancing neighbor relations, I'm going to probably spend more time on here than what I need to, but really trying to drive home the point of how important it is. And again, another way that you can go about enhancing neighbor relations and telling your story is we do have a Green Farm State Partner Program where we encourage livestock farmers to plant trees and windbreaks around their new barns and feedlots. And we do an annual survey every December, and 500 adults said, or 82% of them said, knowing farmers are planting trees around farm gives us a positive impression of their operation and farmers in general. So we know consumers like trees, and through this program, since 2009, we planted almost 70,000 trees on 144 farms. So it is being quite successful, and it's a joint venture with the Iowa Nursery and Landscape Association and Trees Forever. And then we have 25 nursery professionals trained throughout the state that are familiar with hog barns and cattle barns and feedlots that can come out and make recommendations on what types of trees are going to work best on your farm and what your budget is, and they can make all that work for you. And again, some benefits of trees. We obviously push for the improved aesthetics, visual screening, but also, like I mentioned, trees are a great neighbor enhancer. They reduce odor. Iowa State research says 15 to 20% odor reduction around swine barns with a windbreak. We can also control snow to save you time and labor moving it in the winter. and then also saves energy and time. You know, but really what it comes down to is what do looks have to do with it? Again, and this kind of goes back to that neighbor communication piece. And if you raise livestock, you know today that a lot of people smell with their eyes. It's not always with their nose. And so trees really can make a big difference on making those barns a little bit less visible and probably smell a little bit less as well. And again, one tree type we work a lot with are the os trees or the hybrid willows. They grow between 8 and 12 feet a year, but can really provide some quick visual screening around some of these livestock barns. It really goes a long way in making those neighbors happy as well. And this is one guy, this is actually the first farmer we'd ever worked with this program, and he's in Wapello County. Went to put up a hog barn, and most of the people, even though he talked to the neighbors, he sold it as hard as he could. Most neighbors were opposed to him putting this hog barn up. However, after it's been up, all of them have stopped and congratulated him on how nice the site looks. And he's gone on to be an Iowa Pork Environmental Stewardship winner, National Pork Environmental Stewardship winner. He won our Good Farm Neighbor Award, so just a really great farm family, and just the power of trees and him reaching out to the neighbors really made all the difference in the world. And he now has 4 or 5, 6 sites down there in Wapello County and no issues with the neighbors at all. And again, we do have a blog if you want to check it out, to talk about some case studies with other farmers that have planted trees and what's worked the best for them. And then finally, the Good Farm Neighbor Award. And again, this isn't anything you specifically can do, but it is a great way to bring some positive publicity into your community, to your county, just about the great things that livestock farmers do. And this award is sponsored by the coalition, but it's in partnership with the Department of Ag and Land Stewardship and WHO and WMT Radio, where we come out to the farm after a neighbor nominates their livestock producing neighbor for this award. We come out, do a live broadcast over the big show. Secretary of Ag Bill Northey comes out, presents the award to the family, and as you can see, we get all over. We'll actually be in Clark County later this month on the 21st. We'll be Marshall County on the 25th, and then we'll be down in Washington County on September 6th. So a lot of great nominations this year, and we're just happy to recognize these livestock farmers for doing a great job out there on the farm today. And this is just a map where the winners have been. Since 2004, we have recognized 125 winners. And if your county is white, that means you've not had a winner. So if anybody here is from Iowa or Cedar County, we certainly encourage you to nominate a neighbor of yours for this award. So again, just to kind of wrap up, there are some tremendous opportunities out there today in Iowa, whether you're a young and beginning farmer, an established farmer, or an older farmer, that livestock is still king. It's a great way to get back to the farm, especially for young people. And one thing that we do is just kind of coordinate efforts with the commodity and farm groups. But again, just really want to make sure farmers grow responsibly, successfully on the farm today. And if you have questions about developing that plan for growth, siting a new barn, open feedlot compliance, maybe you just want a second set of eyes, looking to improve neighbor relations, we can certainly do that for you, again, at no charge, completely confidential. And since 2004, when we started, we've now served just a little over 4,200 livestock farm families that had questions about growing their farm. So there's certainly a need for our services, and we're happy to assist livestock farmers today. So if you want to stay connected with the coalition, I've got our website up there. You can sign up for our e-team newsletter. That comes out once a month. It has all of our upcoming events, open houses, so on. A couple of conferences that we have coming up. We have an aquaculture conference in November up in Ames, specifically looking at shrimp farming, but it's about 9 to 4 on November 14th, and speakers from all over the United States will come in, talk about setting up shrimp farms. Also, there will be an opportunity to discuss fish. And then January 17th, we have our Farming for the Future conference, where we're really kind of focused on beginning farmers. But again, some of the same speakers you saw today. Steve Ferguson will be there. FSA will be there. We've got, I'm blanking on his name right now, Montana logger, Bruce Vincent coming in to talk about building relationships. It'll just be a great event, and all that'll be on our website or in the newsletter. We've got our GFP blog, and then also you can follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook. So again, that's kind of the coalition in a nutshell. There's 3 of us on staff, myself, Kent Maurer is our senior field coordinator, and then Haley Van Ward is our communication specialist. But if anybody has any questions, I've got a few minutes for those, I believe, before the next speaker. I also have some handouts in the back on the table if you want to get a hold of us down the road. So anybody have any questions? All right, well, thank you very much.